The main incidents and accidents are really going to be down to working with the machinery, people unfortunately getting trapped in machinery or run over by machinery. Sometimes you've got more than one tractor or piece of harvester moving around a field, and you've got individuals working around there as well. So there's quite a lot going on, a lot of movements around that harvest equipment.
What advice can IOSH give farmers at harvest time?
What IOSH would say to farmers at this time of the year is to think about what it is they're doing. Take a few minutes to actually think about what's going on. Having those few thoughts can actually save a lot of time in the long run, and to operate things like the safe stop procedure. So if you've got to stop your tractor or your harvester, it is to actually stop it, make sure the handbrake's on. Where possible, put your controls into neutral, into a safe position, and before you get out of the cab is to actually take the key out of the ignition, and when you're stepping out of the cab is to actually have your back to the facing outwards, so that you've actually got a proper hold of the grab handles, so if something goes on or the handbrake wasn't on properly and the machine rolls forward, you've actually still got a grip and control. I mean, I have seen all-terrain vehicles where people have got out, they thought they'd put the handbrake on and put it in neutral, and they hadn't, and just as they got out, the equipment sort of rolled into a building and sort of demolished half a wall, and fortunately no one was in the way. But these things can happen if you jump out of your equipment in a rush without thinking about it.
Are there any sort of other areas of advice you could give farmers, such as letting other people know where they are? Because farmers are often very isolated in their work, aren't they?
Certainly, and IOSH believes that farming, can work safely with lone working procedures. It's certainly worth letting people know where you are, where you're going, what sort of time you're likely to be back, and also to try and set up a regular contact call, so that if you haven't called in to someone within a couple of hours, they'll try and call you before they start trying to either come and look for you, but also use modern technology. A lot of these iPhones that people have now, certainly where you have got phone signal, you can set up a tracker so that people in your sort of friends and family can actually track where you are with your phone. Also, farming equipment. A lot of it's quite valuable and has tracker functionality, and that can be used to locate where you are if you haven't returned. And I think it was last year there was a very tragic case where a worker, probably a gamekeeper, had an accident with a quad bike, and it was 52 hours before his body was found, and his body was found about 200 metres away from the quad bike. So the individual had actually survived the initial incident, tried to go and get help, but failed. Whereas if perhaps other people were aware that the individual hadn't returned when they should have done, they could have perhaps located the individual, and maybe things would have been different. So it's to also think about, you could be on your own. How could you summon help, and what would you do if something happened?
So finally, there are obvious tragedies like that happen every year, unfortunately, within the UK. What is IOSH's final message to farmers to ensure that we can reduce the amount of fatalities and serious injuries in the future?
IOSH's message really is to sit back, think about what it is you're going to be doing that day. Try and make sure that you've assessed it, you've allowed as much time as you can to actually get the task done, so that you're not rushing, because quite often that's when mistakes are made, when you're rushing and you're tired. To make sure that people who are asked to do the tasks and operate various pieces of equipment are actually trained in using that equipment properly. And IOSH also believe that you should keep all the guards that have been provided with the equipment on, and you shouldn't really sort of alter any of the safety guards and equipment. They're there for a reason. Certainly, if there is a blockage and you need to clear it, is not to put your arms or legs in there, and to make sure that equipment is powered off before you do try and clear a blockage.